We haven't taken off yet.
The way it's currently zoned.
They say that that's not good.
No, they're not making any judgment about it at all.
That's the way it is.
It's Saturday, January 10th, and we're at the high school. Today is the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee's charrette, which is an opportunity for the public to get together and have some input into what development on the island is going to look like in terms of more, less, where, how, things like that. There's a room full of people with real estate licenses right here, and people without real estate licenses also. But there's a lot of important work going on here that will determine what the island looks like 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now. So we're going to talk to people about how they feel about that, right?
Yep, yes we are.
All right, let's do that.
Okay, great.
Good morning, Charlotte. Hilliard is the GIS administrator, and he has been working for the last couple of years creating all these spectacular maps, which not only are beautiful maps, but have a tremendous amount of base information on them, which is very valuable to us and the community. So I'd like to thank Hilliard and recognize his hard effort and also his artwork. As far as I'm concerned, it's nice stuff. We had a spirited discussion last evening. For those of you who weren't here, there are a couple of things that I would like to try to bring into the mix to this planning process. It's a particular belief, and I think I speak for the steering committee.
There's Hilliard.
There's Hilliard. All right, Hilliard, I just thank you. Part and parcel of what the comprehensive plan and the steering committee are trying to do is come up with a roadmap for the future. It's my belief, and I think I speak for most of the steering committee, that roadmap includes more buildings on Nantucket. That's a political reality, probably a legal reality, and in some sense, it's an economic reality. So I think that what is important that we do here today is recognize, regardless of what the number might be, that tomorrow, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, the island is going to look different. There's going to be more buildings. There are going to be different places. I always think back to our forefathers who built the first town in Dionis and then moved all the buildings to different locations. It's a dynamic community and probably always will be so. So with that in mind, I think we've got the best group of, Catherine was lecturing me, architects, planners, consultants, whatever they might want to be called, to help us work through some of the pressing issues that we are facing today. We will, before I introduce Joel, basically what we're going to be looking at is talking about how and where growth should occur and where shouldn't it occur. I think we have done a very poor job in the last 25 or 30 years of dealing with that issue. And this plan, and that today we have a good opportunity to try to correct some of those problems. So as we go through the weekend, if you will give these folks who have come and put in a lot of hard hours and time the benefit of your wisdom, I think we can create a plan that's going to benefit everybody on Nantucket. And saying that, I again believe very strongly that we have a very diverse community on this island. We all know that. It's made up of a large number of people who have different needs, different desires, and the steering committee and the planning commission have been requested to come up with a comprehensive plan which encompasses all the people and benefits all the people of Nantucket. I don't need to list the litany of individuals that might include. They're your neighbors, they teach your children, they run your stores and your restaurants, they protect you, they keep your houses from burning down. All the people, a lot of whom will not come here, will not be here for a variety of reasons. Those are the people that we also need to think about as we step into this planning process.
Yeah, but they reference, so you can get an idea of how exactly.
How much more do you think there is to do there? I mean, what expansion in terms of commercial do you foresee?
I don't know so much as expansion as the fact that there are an awful lot of businesses in town that get a lot of grief from their neighbors and they want to move out there. They want to get out of town and out to the
one
airport.
area, so be it. I mean, we can't have it look, industrial is industrial, that's it. Let it be in one area.
The airport show that all the groundwater flow is this way.
So there's a few houses here that might be impacted.
Right.
Now the FAA, how far from the runway? You can't go right up to the runway with industrial development.
No, I have to building setback lines and that kind of thing.
Because you don't want to.
We don't have to debate the
And then
boundaries.
you write somewhere, he said green, no development.
And also, when you're trying to figure out what the potential is inside that area, the map on the far right over there with the red dots. I walked over to that map this morning, and not far from sort of my bedroom window, I looked out and looked on the map and saw enormous development of red dots there that I never knew existed in that direction. So if you're wondering what's possible in that circle, take a gander.
We love my husband and I love Nantucket. After we were married, he was introduced to it. I'm the one that came since I was 3. And he is now, unfortunately, in the nursing home. But we must love it because we didn't abandon just because we got ill. We stick here because this is a special place. And I agree with everybody. We've got to take care of it in a responsible way because our beaches and our moors and all the lovely things that we enjoy, we don't want anything to happen. So there again, a responsible approach to all of this.
Edward Sanford, and you're the, what are you, the chairman?
I'm the chairman of the steering committee. Steering committee has been formed underneath the Planning Commission, the Economic and Development Planning Commission,
Right.
sort of a subgroup. So we answer to the Planning Commission.
Right. Now, we were just talking on the way over here about how people see and notice about an event like this, right? And they see planning, they see, and they think they're going to be sitting in a room listening, looking at charts, listening to statistics, dry as a bone.
Right.
What I see going on here are people talking about their lives on Nantucket and what they want their lives to be like.
Right.
How can we get more people involved in this process?
Well, I guess hopefully these meetings are going to be so interesting and productive that the people that are here are going to go out and talk about it.
Right.
It's sort of a word of mouth thing. I think we do need to, do a little bit more publicity. But I think in a small community, it's really neighbor talking to neighbor,
Right.
and if people perceive that we're doing something good and positive that might benefit them, then maybe, and they also perceive that they're going to have some input
Right.
that's going to be implemented, that's going to show up in real life.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Hopefully that's that'll work.
People,
get people
politically,
here.
people feel like what they say doesn't matter.
Right.
What kind of palpable effect can people have coming in? What's going to happen? What's going to be the result of this whole?
Well, the result, hopefully, I won't say hopefully, will be a special town meeting in November where we will introduce what is called the comprehensive plan, which will have a host of underlying regulations to be implemented, which hopefully are addressing some of the more pressing problems that we have on the island.
Real laws, real
zoning regulations, proposals on how to deal with traffic. One of my big concerns is what's going on with the middle class housing market on the island, the cost of housing, which everybody knows about. I think there are ways that we can hopefully address those problems. So they're just practical. The other issue is seasonal housing for workers, which we've been talking about for 10 or 15 years. At least. I mean, it's ever since I've been on Nantucket.
Well, that's the question. There's a lot of service industry workers out there, tradespeople out there who are taking home, $400 a week all year round.
Right.
And they've been listening to people tell them for 20 years, we're working on that affordable housing thing. And you pick up the paper now, it's $1,500 a month for a 3-bedroom house. How is it really going to change?
Well, I think that what the steering committee has done over the last 15 months, it's been fairly slow, is we brought those problems to the fore, and the consultants that we've hired have been charged with taking those issues and crafting solutions that we're going to take to a special town meeting in November. Right. So hopefully there'll be new rules and regulations and new a host of other methods that are going to start addressing those problems. I mean, a lot of the underlying issues, say with the seasonal housing, is a zoning problem. And you can look very clearly at what happened in Nantucket and what the underlying zoning is doing, and you can see how it's very difficult to create seasonal housing for an individual or for a business person. It's a very difficult process. So there are a lot of things like that that I think our consulting team are very savvy about, that we will start to put into the zoning bylaw. Right. So it's not going to, there's not going to be a noticeable difference next year, but maybe in 2 or 3 years, as these things really take effect, then the hope is that the things are better.
In terms of affordable housing, how do the market forces work? You can't go to a homeowner and tell them
right.
put a cap on what they can charge for year-round rent, can you?
No, you don't. Well, you can. I mean, there's rent control.
Right.
A lot of people don't like that idea, and
it's falling all over the country.
It's right. It's an old idea. One of the things that I think we need to look better at is how to increase the supply of what we would consider year-round housing. Now, that might mean, just as a suggestion, if somebody wants to build a year-round house, then they have to restrict it. It is a year-round house. It's not going to be a summer rental in 5 years. It will always be, if they're going to get a building permit to put up this structure for some lengthy period of time, maybe indefinitely, that house is designated for a year-round renter, a year-round family, or something other than a weekly summer rental house.
Which theoretically is a great idea. How do you make it really happen? How do you enforce something like that? That's the crux of the matter.
That is the crux of the matter, and that's why we have consultants, because I think they deal with this issue.
Right.
There are plenty of other communities that have this sort of a problem, so it's not particular to Nantucket.
Okay.
And
well, I'm going to volunteer to be chief of the housing police when the force is formed.
So anyhow, that's what we're going to try to do. When's the
next meeting going to be? How can people get involved next time?
We start the next series of meetings is March 6, 7, 8, and 9, very similar to this weekend. So just start spreading the word. We will have results from this meeting, which we're going to get out so people can see what we're working on. And it's really a word of mouth. As I keep asking people, get a neighbor, get a friend, and bring them. If they don't come...
This is real. This is like you run into people on Main Street and you bitch about what's wrong with the island.
This is a good
These are people doing that at a place where it's going to make a difference.
It is, and we will see the results Monday night. The other thing to do is to bring people in on Monday night, and we will have some results of all these discussions. So it's in a very immediate, direct process, and it's again one of the reasons why we hired these guys, because they're not leaving and coming up with ideas. They're gonna leave and go tonight and work all tonight, all day tomorrow, and all tomorrow night, and come back Monday evening with a set of solutions and proposals based on what we've discussed here. So the community is very much in charge.
And it's not dry. This is a very vibrant, vital thing going on here, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is.
I gotta say,
it should be fun. That's the key element. So,
well, thanks a lot.
All right.
For 2 years, working residents here a year and a half. One of the challenges that Phil Reed told me when I was to come to work here was to find housing. We were very fortunate in what we did find, and that is the challenge that I tell any of the people that apply for summer jobs. We have some limited housing for our summer staff, but for the most part, I say you have to find housing and then come back and apply for a job.
A friend of mine who's born and raised on the island called me and asked me about housing for his daughter, who's a grown person but is having a problem finding housing. And yesterday I talked to a young woman who's a single mother with 2 kids, who's been here for 15 years working, has a great job, but she's leaving in the spring because of housing and child care. The housing is the biggest thing, she said. She's going to live on the Cape because the biggest concern in this whole operation is, can you hear me? It's housing for people who want to work and have good jobs and want to raise their families here, and we need them because they're doing the groundskeeping, the repair, the laboring. They're the people that we really need.
But they're maxed out. They got to do something about that sewer. I don't know what they're going to do about the sewer. because they
Find a
lost.
sewer treatment plant.
Yeah, they gotta.
Okay, I think in view of our time, if Sylvia's all right, we ought to switch. Could you go ahead and give your views now?
Well, she's going to find to see if there's a map on the sewer lines, because I don't know. That's what I agree with. I think what we've got to stop somewhere and just say no more sewers.
No more sewer extensions and water company extensions.
Yeah.
Is that a consensus
Look what
at
we.
this
Well,
table?
no, I don't know about that.
Let's ask.
We're still talking.
What's the statement?
But like, look what happened when they put that sewer extension in and out at the Nantucket Inn. They told us it was going to be a year-round place for the people to use the pool, and then they closed it, right? And so the people thought, okay, let's give them what they want because we're going to get something out of it. And then look what happened.
Now, Sylvia, what about Madigan?
Sewered areas first, then unsewered areas secondary, and because Madigan doesn't have sewer, so someday they may have to carry the sewer line all the way out there to protect the water quality out there.
They should.
The water lines are going to.
They're already drinking bottled water.
Just extend Madigan if they have to.
Yeah, they're already drinking
Make them have to.
Well,
And if we say no, you can't, then what?
Then
if you do the water line first, right, you still need the larger lots to be able to put your septic in.
Is there a
So that
consensus
sort
at
of
our
slows that
table?
down.
Is there a consensus at our table that growth should be largely confined to areas that have town sewer and town water?
No.
First.
There's not. Let's hear.
Well, there may be areas that would be likely candidates for development, and extension of sewer and water might be a healthy introduction.
I asked my question.
I think we need the map to see where they are.
I wasn't presuming that we're frozen into where the sewer and water lines are now, but rather trying to establish whether we had a consensus on the concept that where there is going to be building, there should be sewer and water lines either already existing or newly established. Is there a consensus on that?
Good and expensive idea.
Water and sewer line, they shouldn't remain private if you have a development that's going in. I think the town should benefit from that.
I think
eventually.
I think the problem is whether our existing lines are archaic. We have so much work to do to get our old.
But we can't really get into that and stick to our question today.
Right.
No, I have to
I'm just saying,
And that's big. You know, you can't have, you know, it's not just the fertilizer that the gardeners put down. It's the septic runoff that, you know, it's the let's say there's 500 old septic systems in here that haven't got a chance of passing
That's
current
why I
test.
would put development here, because A, we've got the bike path, we've got a significant amount of conservation land here. If we would make this an infrastructure area, you know, put in a sewer, get rid of the septic systems, and create a community really along Pulpus Road. I mean, that's what I see as a low-impact place to put a lot of houses.
But it won't be a community.
I
It'll be
agree,
sprawled.
but I agree in a different way, because what's going to happen, what I think supports, again, this island is going to continue to support it, is the money that comes here to stay. This is where the money wants to buy.
Right.
So if you make it possible, yet expensive, for that money to buy, that money supports the rest of the island. So eliminating growth or eliminating more growth in that area may not be practical from an economic standpoint. But certainly the infrastructure's got to be added.
The money is here, and we don't need any more
There's
money.
good, but it's
I mean,
going to be
that's
coming.
what's driving
Look at the budget.
and this huge area that we've already identified for potential development.
Well, I mean, personally, I wouldn't develop a whole lot more in the center.
I wouldn't either. I would like another red line over here. But
Quite a few members in that golf course that are going to be building houses here. They're buying houses here for $6 million, $4 million. You know, they fly in and they do this. And that golf course, probably someday they're going to be building on that golf course. I wouldn't be surprised. Houses on that. Then they won't have to worry about our transportation getting to and from.
And the town owned them. They want to turn them around, and they would go to and sell them. They want to get rid of them, you know.
Yeah,
but
that's
right now, there's a possibility where the sewer beds are here in the Navy base.
Yeah.
They're using the pumping station from here too. They don't know what they're going to do yet. Down in Sconset, down in Low Beach, they're trying to get a piece of Coast Guard property to take care of all the Sconset sewer area.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's a problem they got there too. They're trying that.
So is that it, Nance? Yeah, I think so.
Can I make it? Please don't skip me. I'd like my turn.
Yes, we're next. No, Bob.
Okay.
I've had too many people last
I'll try to
for
say
hours.
each thing only one time.
There are two Nantuckets. There's the summer community and the year-round. The summer community, I believe, wants large houses for their prestige because that's how they earn the money to afford them, and they want a lot of space. There's the year-round people who typically haven't got the money that the summer people do and are looking for smaller homes. There's a difference there. One of you made the comment that he has 5 acres and owns it, and that's the only way to control it. And my question that I wanted to ask was, well, why don't you have 500 acres?
Well, I think again, in this area surrounding the town, there are a lot of lots already done there that are going to be developed anyway.
And would you define the town? Does it include Midtown? Does it include...
Well, I would say,
Does it include Stop and Shop area?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Does it include the part of Old South Road where they're developing some businesses?
It
like,
would, yeah.
The Peter Piper?
Yep.
That's
Where's
all
the airport?
considered town? Okay.
Yeah, Tuffancy's. So if you started here and came across... Do we have pencils so we can erase it?
I have pencils. Here's a pencil.
Yeah, okay. If we came across here, and this is Crooked Lane. Is that Crooked Lane? I think so.
Yeah.
You came across Crooked Lane to Matticat Road. Now you got a lot of lots in here.
Yeah, but the economics of these lots are enormous. You know, they're being held for very high resale prices.
Well, not so much in here.
No, not in
This is Hedgeberry going in here. But if you came out maybe out to here.
Okay, here we are.
So you come out
What
to
are we
here.
talking about for the prices of lots?
Well, that,
half acre
we
lot?
don't know. You don't know, but that's immaterial because...
Not like along here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not desirable for people with second homes. It's more desirable for year-rounders.
Watch whether you want two sides of the road to be different or whether you really want to be drawing a line at the back of the property.
Yeah.
It's a small point.
Yeah.
Here you probably have very... Yeah. But if you get around to...
We already made some bad mistakes.
No, you got lots of paper. You got, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. But I'm just saying when you think about it.
Sure, both sides of the street. My name's Michael,
Actually,
by the way.
I'm Ann.
Ann, hi, how are you?
What were you going to say?
We're at a slightly critical moment of being able to float a little bit.
Right.
Whereas there'll be lots of time where I can just talk with
Are you switching questions at this point?
We're just trying to. They need to be nudged into the next level of
Right.
development.
Uh-huh.
Some of the tables. So we're just trying to cover them and make sure that people are moving on to the next thing, and that they're in fact beginning to draw, which most of them are.
Yeah, pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Huh?
What are you doing here?
Well, we're trying to get people to face up to the growth decisions using the map,
Right.
and to get specific.
How specific?
Well, there's no limit to how specific you can get, and we find in this process that actually when people focus on particular places and particular issues, it's easier to get them to agree than if you ask them general questions.
Right.
That if you frame a debate as growth, no growth, you get a lot of sort of headbutting and absolute disagreement. But if you talk about a particular place that might need a few things added into it, or that a particular piece of land which there's a lot of emotion about not building on, you get a lot more agreement.
Anecdotal kind of.
In the end, the plan, in the end, the plan is going to be made up of a composite of lots and lots and lots of specific decisions.
Right.
It will have an overall effect, but it's not made from big singular moves. It's made up of a lot of different decisions, and the more people can engage with that, the more sort of connected they can feel to the process and more involved they can be, which is, I think, what you see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very vital. There's a real vibe in the room. There's no question about it. How did you get involved in this project?
I've been doing projects like this for about 6 years now, and I got involved because I couldn't stand what I was seeing happen to beautiful places.
Right.
I grew up in various places that were turning into classic suburban sprawl, and I kept feeling there must be some way to stop this, and there's a whole group of people, of planners, who've been affected the same way, and through that I got engaged in the planning process and the kinds of alternate options that there were, and ways in which you could reconcile saving land and promoting certain kinds of economic development, that you weren't in a
And are you part of
singular
a team
situation.
Well,
consultants?
there's a team who are doing this project right now, which is headed by Catherine Johnson, and includes myself, Joel Russell, Paul Moraine, and Frank Mahady and Rick Chelman, who are not here today, the economic consultant and a traffic planner.
Would you say your team has a political agenda, per se?
We do. We have a political agenda that we think the island can grow into a better place, that it is an absolutely wonderful place, and that it's a shame to see it fractured by divided opinions and by its pricing people off the island.
But are there real tactile, hard solutions to that problem?
There are only tactile and hard solutions.
Can you legislate?
Well, Massachusetts, you have to talk with Joel about this. Well, we always have.
Right.
I mean, we have always done that. The question is how much and of what kind.
Right.
But zoning legislates how people use their property. Wetlands regulations does. Health regulations, building codes do.
Right.
They're just not being applied to produce the results that are the kinds of places people care about. The regulations they're the same all over the country. Some of them are basically misguided. They aren't structured to reflect what people care about, and that's the business we're in, is recrafting regulations so that they actually get people what they want.
Well, let's talk about one thing that people want, which is affordable housing.
Yeah.
People who live here year-round, working schmucks like
that's
myself.
I have an architectural practice that focuses on that as well.
But this is a very unique situation, laboratory for that kind of. I mean, can you go to a homeowner and say, can we introduce rent control to Nantucket? I mean, that's.
You're going to need some really unusual and creative solutions to that problem here, because Americans want to leave everything to the market, and the market on Nantucket is not going to do this job.
Right. And for 20 years,
It's just not.
people on the island have been hearing we're working on the affordable housing problem.
There have been some interesting ideas floated as we've started this. One of them is that you've got this extremely effective land bank, and that maybe that's a strategy which could actually be turned towards affordable housing.
Right.
That if the island banked land for affordable housing, and then made housing available either on a lease the building but not own the land, or there are a whole set of mechanisms for that kind of thing. But this is going to take the same kind of community commitment as purchasing land for preservation has taken. It's not.
You think it can happen for real?
Yeah, because I think that there's an unbelievable amount of commitment on this island. And it includes to that issue. We travel around the country giving talks on what sprawl is doing, how it's homogenizing the landscape, and how we always use Nantucket as an example that there still are these really unique places that have this really strong character, that have narrow streets, buildings close to the property line, a density which most suburban Americans think is horrific, and yet they fly here at great expense for 2 weeks in the summer just to be in the middle of it.
Right.
And so we use that as an example of what is possible, how a community can really foster its individual character and make that a positive example. And then you get, Joel was saying that when you talk about the rest of the country is very skeptical about regulations. You raise the question, can you tell people what to do? Nantucket already tells people what to do way more than other places do.
Right.
You've got the HDC is an extremely effective and has these very, very precise design guidelines.
Many people say that the HDC was previously more effective and is getting less effective.
That I can't address.
Right.
But as an architect from off island, I know that on the mainland people quake at the idea of, or architects quake at the idea of having to abide by these regulations. And our feeling is that they're very good for doing what they're supposed to do, but they don't address the land planning problems. They don't operate at that scale. And we can do that. We can begin to talk about the same level of precision and detail in terms of how you lay buildings out on the land and how you agglomerate them. But what's been happening is you've been having an architectural code which is very precise, and land planning which is standard 1970s all across the country zoning, and the two things don't mesh. And when they do, they get you something that's kind of a parody of Nantucket, frankly, and not really the place.
What's your gut feeling about a place like Nantucket we make our living from? being what we are, and tourists,
marketing it to other
coming
people,
here
yeah.
and being here. But we also want to live in a year-round small-town community. Can an
That's not a
equilibrium
toy.
be struck?
Yeah, I think that it involves real diversifying of the economy, though. I mean, you need to have people there need to be more alternatives, and it's a time when that's very possible, because this is happening all over the place, that computers and communications technology are making all kinds of new funny businesses possible that don't have to operate at large scale and don't have to be in a particular place. So there's that. There are the sustainability industries, both in aquaculture and fishing and things like that, a lot of things are changing very quickly, and Nantucket has often been in the vanguard, and I think it has the opportunity to do that again. I'm going to have to go back to work.
Okay, thanks for talking to us. Appreciate it.
But my feeling is that I don't know of a device, a method,